Yeah, we're going to talk about this guy. So this is a different topic. This guy is Doug Wilson. Doug Wilson is a preacher, an American preacher, with definite Christian nationalist leanings, and that's called a Christian nationalist heart that says we need to make America behave the way they should. Damn it. Right? In the name of God, they need to behave the way Jesus says, or the way the God says. Rarely is it ever Jesus. The way God says they should behave. So he gave a talk today. I thought the talk was kind of funny, but I also thought the talk was interesting. This was from something Right Wing Watch put out a couple of weeks ago. It says, Doug Wilson says, God is judging America for becoming enslaved to orgasms without consequence. Beware of orgasms without consequence. They will just make you happy. And nobody needs that kind of happiness. Right? So anyway, in this talk that he gives, he's talking about how God is judging America. And he talks about how America was like the most abundant, the most fruitful country in the history of countries that's ever been a country. And then he says, but now we're in a state where God is punishing America for being fruitless. And he goes on to list all these different ways that America has become fruitless. He says, think about anal sex, he says. How is, among other things, it's fruitless. And what else does he say? He talks about how, dual income, no children families are fruitless. And he talks about, the danger of orgasms without consequence. The bottom line here is what he talks about. He talks about abortions. Abortion is a fruitless endeavor. It violently ends the ability to provide. Anyway, with all the stuff that he said. He's what it comes down to is birth. We need to give birth. Women need to give birth more. Birth rates need to go up among the American population. We need to be more fruitful. I mean, there's that passage, go forth and be fruitful and multiply. Which folks like Doug Wilson would take, and they would say, yeah, we have to go forward and be fruitful, and we have to multiply, and we have to have children. And really, if we're not having children, if we're not bringing new mini-me's into this world, then we're not fruitful. And we're not doing what it is God really wants us to do. That is our true purpose in this world, to have children. And this isn't an uncommon theological stance for folks like Doug Wilson. This is what they hold to. And women, sadly, because of this theological, quote unquote, theological position, women therefore have a very specific function. And if they do not live according to that purpose, that function, they're missing the boat. They're not being the people that they're supposed to be. But again, we were talking about the gospel earlier. And Jesus tells us to go forth and to share the gospel. Right? Baptizing in his name, giving people a new lease on life in his name. And he talks about us making disciples of all the nations. It's really important. That doesn't mean believers. That means disciples. That means followers of him, people who are going to go out and do the work that he asked us to do in all nations. That's what he asks us to do. Jesus has a different understanding of being fruitful. For Jesus, it's not physically fruitful. It's spiritually fruitful. Go forward sharing the message that I have shared with you. Go forward and love your brothers and sisters, whoever they may be, wherever they may be, whatever language they may speak, whatever their country of origin may be. Go forward. Share with them the message that I shared with you. Share with them the love that I shared with you. Share with them how much I loved you and how much I love them. That, for the Christian, is true. That's truly fruitful work. That's a fruitful life. When Paul talks about the fruits of the Spirit, The fruits of the Spirit of a Jesus follower, of a person who is a disciple of Jesus Christ. Being fruitful is not, and you have 19 kids. That's not what Paul says. The fruits of the Spirit, Paul says, are kindness and gentleness and perseverance and patience and forgiveness and love. Paul, in his letters, at one point says, if you can, don't have a family. Give everything you can to God and to God's purpose. Don't give yourself to a wife and to children. Give yourself to God and to God's purpose, to God's plan. Give yourself to God's work and mission. That for Paul would have been the most fruitful life you possibly could have lived. So when it comes to theologies like this, that you hear from guys like Doug Wilson, who are warning us about the dangers of orgasms without consequence, and by consequence it means pregnancy and ultimately the birth of a healthy child. There's something else to it, right? There's a deeper message that they're trying to convey. There's a deeper understanding that they're trying to impose. There's a deeper theology that they want people to adopt without knowing that they're adopting it. We as a nation must be fruitful, and if we're not fruitful, God will smite us and God will punish us. Oh, well, I guess, and what does that mean? What does it mean to be fruitful? And what it means to be fruitful is every time you have an orgasm, it should result in a pregnancy. Oh, okay. Well, if we're gonna, so we want to try to prevent God's punishment. That's right. You got to prevent God's punishment. So that means no sex without the purpose of procreation. If it's not going to lead to procreation, we shouldn't even bother. Yeah, that's absolutely, that should be the point of every time. Ultimately, it comes down to, well, ultimately in the end, it means subjugation of women. Again, in the name of God. It's really important, in the name of God, because this is God's plan, and we want to prevent God's wrath from raining down on America. And if we really want to save America, if we really want to protect America from God's wrath, then men should be willing to subjugate women, and women should be willing to be subjugated. I'm really surprised he's not modeling or having somebody model the uniforms from Margaret Atwood's book that turned into a TV show that is absolutely escaping my brain right now. No. Jesus' message to us is one of freedom. Jesus' message to us is not one of subjugation of our loved ones. It's not one that says we should subjugate into servanthood our family, our friends, our neighbors. It isn't one that says this is your only purpose in life is to be a baby factory. That's not Jesus' message. Jesus' message is, yes, go out and be fruitful. And if you are going out and be fruitful, you will share my message. It's spiritual fruitfulness that he's talking about, spiritual growth that he's talking about, spiritual it's spiritual. Oh, yes, it is the Handmaid's Tale. Thank you, Mary Pose. It's the Handmaid's Tale. Jesus is talking about spiritual fruitfulness. That's what matters. Are you sharing this message of God's love? And again, I'll say it. If we're focusing on doing what Jesus tells us to do, everything else falls in line. All of our priorities fall into place. All those things that are causing us worry, they fall into place. If we're sharing love, we're sharing peace, we're sharing kindness and gentleness and forgiveness, we're sharing all the things that Paul and Jesus talk about. If we're doing all those things, this world becomes a better place. And as this world becomes a better place, guess what? My suspicion is people are more likely to have some kids, right? All of those problems, we see them for what they really are. We see them for what they really are. The more we go out and share the love that Jesus asks us to share, the more we see all of these issues like Doug Wilson's talking about here for what they really are. And let's touch on one more thing. This wrath that guys like Doug Wilson are always warning the world about. Jesus paid the price. Full stop. Jesus paid the price for you and for me and for the entire world, not just our nation, for the entire world. Jesus paid the price. Amen.